The fluorescent lights in the corridor buzz and sting in Ella Clark's eyes as if the whole hospital is a wasp nest. She stands outside the intensive care unit with a sheet of paper crushed in her shaking hands. $500,000. The number on the estimate blurs, then sharpens again when she wipes her tears away with the back of her wrist. Her parents lie behind the glass, each hooked to a forest of tubes and monitors. A rare blood disease, the doctor says, aggressive and unforgiving. They need surgery and long-term treatment. They need money Ella does not have. Within a week. The doctor had told her, voice gentle but final. If you cannot secure payment by then, the hospital will not be able to proceed with the operation. I am very sorry. A week. 7 days to find a miracle in New York City. Ella spends 3 of those days sprinting between social workers, loan officers, charity foundations, and every distant relative whose number she can still find in her phone. Her sneakers slap wet pavement, her breath burns, her heart never stops pounding. Every answer is the same: too risky, no collateral, no vacancy on the charity list, no. On the 4th day she climbs 5 flights of stairs to a walk-up in Queens, and rings a familiar doorbell with numb fingers. Her father's distant cousin Beth Taylor opens the door, wrapped in a silk robe that screams money. Ella. Beth stares, eyebrows climbing. What on earth happened to you? You look like you slept in a stairwell. I have been at the hospital. Ella says. Her voice trembles anyway. My parents are both sick. It is a rare blood disease. They need surgery, and I need to borrow money. Just for the deposit. I will pay you back. I swear it. Beth's painted mouth twists. Your parents again. Those two are a bottomless pit. Do you have any idea how much they cost your grandfather when he was alive? You expect me to throw good money after bad? We are family. Ella whispers. Please. If I lose them, Beth steps out into the hallway and pulls the door mostly closed behind her so the neighbors can hear every word. Family? You never come here unless you want something. Look at yourself. You are a 24-year-old nurse's aide with no savings and no prospects. You think you can pay back $500,000? Ella's cheeks burn, but she holds Beth's gaze. I will work 3 jobs. 4. I will do anything. Exactly. Beth snaps. You will do anything. That is the problem. People like you never learn to live within their limits. She folds her arms, voice rising. Do not come to me with your sob story. Your parents made their own bed. You can lie in it with them. The door slams in Ella's face. The lock turns with a final click that echoes down the stairwell. By the time she stumbles back to the hospital that evening, rain has soaked through her shoes. She sinks onto the cold stone steps outside the entrance and buries her face in her hands. The city moves around her in streaks of headlights and umbrellas, uncaring and loud. Her phone buzzes with another automated reminder about the unpaid bill. She silences it and finally lets herself shake apart. She does not notice the black Rolls-Royce until it stops right in front of her. The rear door opens with a soft mechanical sigh. A man steps out, tall and perfectly put together in a charcoal suit that probably costs more than her parents' old house. Streetlight glints on his dark hair and the sharp lines of his jaw. Ella Clark? He asks. His voice is low, controlled, and carries the kind of authority that makes people move aside without thinking. Behind him, a young man in glasses climbs out of the front seat holding a slim leather folder and a checkbook. Ella scrubs at her wet face. That is me. Did something happen to my parents? Are you from the hospital? No. The man says. My name is Luke Walker. The name lands with a dull shock. Even Ella, who spends most of her days in scrubs and shuttle buses, knows the Walker Group. Skyscrapers, headlines, billionaire lists. Luke Walker is the son who turned the company into a tech and finance empire before he turned 30. He is also staring at her like she is a business problem that might finally have an elegant solution. Luke's assistant steps forward and offers the folder. Miss Clark, our company has been evaluating several philanthropic partnerships. Mr. Walker has reviewed your situation. Ella does not reach for the folder. I did not apply for anything. You did not have to. Luke says. The hospital board includes one of our directors. I saw your file. Rare disease, both parents, no insurance coverage. A very heavy burden. Shame and anger flare together in Ella's chest. I did not ask you to read my file. Or pity me. Luke's gaze does not waver. What I am offering is not pity. It is a contract. A bitter laugh escapes her. Of course it is. The assistant flips open the folder. Inside is a neat stack of documents, and a cashier's check already made out to the hospital for the exact amount on Ella's estimate. Ella's breath stutters. What is this? Payment in full for your parents' treatment. Luke says. Signed and guaranteed by Walker Group. They will have their surgery tomorrow morning. He pauses. In exchange, you will marry me. Ella stares at him. That is not funny. It is not meant to be funny. You do not even know me. I know enough. His eyes flick briefly to the hospital doors, then back. I need a wife. For 1 year. On paper, in public, and at family functions. After that, we divorce and go our separate ways. No strings. You walk away with your parents alive and a significant sum in your account. I walk away with a reputation as a dutiful grandson who cooperated with my grandmother's wishes. Ella's heart hammers against her ribs. Why me? Because you are desperate, but you are not reckless. Luke says evenly. You have refused every unethical offer the hospital director hinted at. You work 3 jobs. You checked yourself out after giving plasma instead of letting the nurse call you a cab. You cry on the steps where no one inside will see you. You do not sell your dignity unless there is truly no choice. Her cheeks burn again, this time with something like humiliation and fury mixed together. So you were watching me. I was gathering data. He says. I do not make contracts with people I cannot trust at least a little. Behind him, the glass doors hiss open. Beth walks out with a neighbor, sees the car, the suit, the check in Ella's hand. Her eyes go wide. Ella. Beth's voice pitches high. What is going on? You are talking to Luke Walker? Luke barely glances at her. And you are? Her aunt. Beth lies smoothly, already stepping closer. We are very close. Ella, if you need help reading that contract, I can. No. Luke says. The single word slices the air. My lawyer wrote it in very simple language. Even your aunt should be able to understand. His gaze sharpens, ice cold. Miss Clark has a decision to make, and she does not need background noise. Beth flushes an angry red. You. Luke takes a step closer to Ella instead, shutting Beth out of his line of sight. It is simple. He says quietly. Sign this, and your parents live. Refuse, and you keep your pride and watch them die. I cannot make that choice for you. Ella looks at the check again, at the hospital entrance, at her own trembling hands. Her whole life she has believed that love means sacrifice, that family means carrying weight together. Now the weight has crushed her flat, and a stranger is holding out a lever. She takes the pen. Her signature looks small and crooked next to Luke's clean angular one. When she finishes the last stroke, her throat closes so tight she can hardly breathe. Luke takes the folder from his assistant and snaps it shut. The hospital will have their money tonight. He says. Your parents go into surgery in the morning. Pack a bag, Miss Clark. Tomorrow you come home with me. Beth reaches for Ella's arm, outrage and envy fighting on her face. Ella, you cannot just marry a man like this without consulting your family. Luke finally looks at her. His smile does not reach his eyes. My wife's family had 18 years to treat her like she mattered. He says. You chose not to. From now on, what happens to Mrs. Walker is none of your concern. He offers Ella his hand, not like a billionaire making a deal, but like a man inviting her to stand. She hesitates for half a heartbeat, then slips her fingers into his. His palm is warm, steady, terrifying. In the glow of the hospital entrance, with sirens howling distantly down the avenue, Ella walks toward the car, and the life she never wanted but desperately needs. Luke's mansion on the edge of the city looks like it fell out of an architecture magazine. Glass and steel, manicured lawns, a driveway wide enough for a parade. Ella stands in the foyer with her single worn duffel bag at her feet, and tries not to let her jaw drop. Do not worry. Luke's assistant says in a bright, practiced tone. We will send someone to fetch the rest of your things. These are my things. Ella mutters. Luke appears at the top of the sweeping staircase, already in a fresh suit. It is not even noon. She wonders if he sleeps in one. Come with me. He says. We need to establish ground rules. They sit across from each other at a long table in a study that smells like leather and faint cologne. The city skyline glitters through the window. Between them lies a new document, this one only 2 pages. First, Luke says, tapping a bullet point. In public, you will act like my wife. That means you smile, you hold my hand, you let my grandmother fuss over you. No one outside this house knows this is a contract. Understood? Ella nods. In private? In private. He says. We stay out of each other's way. We do not interfere with each other's personal lives, as long as there is no scandal. You can keep your job at the hospital if you wish. You can visit your parents as often as their doctors allow. If you need extra help at home, we will hire it. And where do I sleep? she asks, flushing when his eyebrows lift. In the guest wing, Luke says calmly, "You will have your own bedroom, bathroom, and sitting room. No one will question separate rooms in a house this size if we do not advertise it." Ella exhales slowly. That, at least, is a relief. "What about your grandmother?" she asks. "Will she not expect us to share?" At the mention of his grandmother Martha, something flickers in his face, half exasperation and half reluctant fondness. "My grandmother expects a lot of things," he says. "Mostly that I stop treating the company like my only child. She also has very sharp eyes. So we will give her a show when she visits, and we will make sure she leaves satisfied." "A show," Ella repeats. "What does that mean?" He studies her, then leans back. "It means you might have to sit on the arm of my chair while we have coffee. It means you might have to let me kiss your forehead when people are watching. It means, Mrs. Walker, that you will have to pretend you actually like me." Ella bites the inside of her cheek. "I do not dislike you," she admits. "I just do not know you. Get to know me enough to fake it," he says dryly. "It will not be difficult. I am very charming when I decide to be." He is not charming when he finds her later that night in the kitchen staring desolately at a fancy coffee machine and a row of labeled buttons. "You have never seen a built-in coffee maker?" he asks, amused. "I grew up with a kettle and instant coffee," she says. "This thing looks like it could launch satellites." She pushes the wrong button. Steam hisses. A thin stream of lukewarm brown liquid dribbles into a cup, splattering her wrist. She yelps and jumps back. Luke steps in, close enough that she can smell the clean fabric softener on his shirt. His fingers brush her wrist, checking for burns before she can pull away. "You are going to demolish my kitchen if I leave you alone with it," he mutters. "From now on, if you want coffee, you call the housekeeper." "I am not helpless," Ella protests. "Today you signed a contract to marry a stranger to save your parents," he says, stepping back. "You are the opposite of helpless. You are also tired and overwhelmed. Let the machines and staff handle things for a few days." Something in his tone is unexpectedly gentle. Ella swallows whatever retort she was going to make and nods. When Martha Walker drops by unannounced that weekend, Luke's rules get tested sooner than either of them expects. The older woman strides into the foyer, with a cane she does not really need, and an entourage of staff carrying flower arrangements and gift bags. Her hair is perfectly silver, her lipstick perfectly red, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Luke," she calls, "if you do not bring your wife down here in the next 30 seconds, I will march upstairs and drag her out myself." Ella, halfway down the back staircase in a simple blue dress, freezes. Luke appears beside her, lips close to her ear. "Remember," he says softly, "we like each other, very much." Her pulse skitters, then stops, sounding like "you are about to send me into battle." "In my family," he murmurs. "This is battle." They descend together. On instinct, Ella's hand tightens on his arm. He covers it with his own, fingers warm around hers. Martha turns. For a heartbeat, her stern face softens. "So this is the girl who tricked my grandson into doing something human." Ella nearly chokes. "I did not trick him, ma'am. Luke squeezes her hand. "Grandmother, this is Ella, my wife." Martha's gaze rakes over Ella from her thrift store heels to the faint shadows under her eyes. Instead of the scathing remark Ella expects, the old woman opens her arms. "Come here, child," she says. "Let me look at you properly." Ella steps into the hug. Martha smells like lavender and old books. Her voice drops near Ella's ear. "If he bullies you, tell me. I will take the company away from him and give it to you instead." Ella startles and laughs. "I do not want the company." "Good," Martha says. "You might be the only sane person in this house." Luke rolls his eyes. Martha sees and smacks his arm with the cane, then hooks her hand through Ella's and pulls her toward the sitting room. Luke watches them go, something warm and complicated settling in his chest. When they sit down for tea, Martha leans close and says in an undertone that Luke pretends not to hear, "You do realize this boy has liked you since the moment he read your file, yes?" "Grandmother," Luke says, choking on his coffee. Ella goes scarlet. "He liked my file? Only idiots fall in love with resumes," Martha says serenely. "Luke is many things, but not an idiot. He saw your spine and your heart, and did something very inconvenient." Ella catches Luke's eye across the table. For the first time, he looks almost embarrassed. She ducks her head and, without thinking, reaches for his hand under the table. His fingers curl around hers as if it is the most natural thing in the world. For a moment, The contract between them feels less like a chain and more like a bridge. News of Luke's sudden marriage spreads through certain circles faster than any press release. Some react with curiosity, others with glee, and at least one person with naked fury. Howard Walker, Luke's second uncle, storms into the family boardroom with a newspaper crumpled in his fist. "You married a nurse's aide from Queens?" he demands. Without a prenup? Luke does not bother to look up from his tablet. "Good morning to you too, uncle." Howard slaps the paper down in front of him. Ella's face stares back in grainy color beside a headline about the city's most eligible bachelor being off the market. "This is a stunt." Howard snarls. "You are using this girl to get Martha off your back about the Reynolds merger." Luke finally looks at him. "I am honoring my grandmother's wish that I settle down," he says evenly. "My choice of wife is my own." Howard leans closer, eyes glittering. "Your choice of wife affects the company. We cannot afford some unknown girl with sick parents and a trail of debt." Luke's patience snaps. "Her parents' medical debt is paid," he says coldly. "By me. And if you ever refer to my wife as a liability again, I will personally have you escorted from this building." Later that week, Howard tries a different angle. He pays Beth Taylor a visit. Beth arrives at the Walker mansion in a dress that is 2 sizes too small, and a smile that is 2 shades too bright. She gushes over the art on the walls, the height of the ceilings, the chandeliers. The staff exchange looks behind her back. Ella meets her in the foyer with polite distance. "Beth, what are you doing here? I heard you got married." Beth says, voice sugar-sweet. "To a very important man. I thought, as your dear aunt, I should come and offer my blessings. And maybe discuss some opportunities." "Opportunities?" Ella repeats carefully. Beth squeezes her hand too hard. "Now that you are Mrs. Walker, surely you can help your cousins. Little Tim still cannot find a decent job. I thought perhaps Mr. Walker could take him into the company. Family helps family, right?" Memories of Beth's door slamming in her face flash through Ella's mind. The bitter words. "Bottomless pit. People like you." Before Ella can respond, Luke's voice drifts down from the stairs. "Of course family helps family." Beth whirls, smile stretching. "Mr. Walker, what a pleasure. I was just saying. In my experience, family is defined by who stands with you when you have nothing." Luke says as he descends. "Not by who shows up when you suddenly have something they want." He steps beside Ella and laces their fingers together. The gesture is so natural that Beth's smile falters. "I understand you refused to lend Ella a dime when her parents were admitted." Luke continues conversationally. "You called them a bottomless pit. You told her to stay in her place." Beth's face drains of color. I was worried for her. I did not want her to take on more than she could handle." Luke nods. "I appreciate your concern. Fortunately, she married a man who can handle a great deal." For a heartbeat, Beth brightens again. "Exactly. So about my son." "No," Luke says. The word is soft and absolute. Beth blinks. "I have not even. I do not hire people who see my wife as a stepping stone," Luke says. "Or people raised by someone who thinks compassion is weakness. Tim is welcome to apply like any other candidate. If he earns a place, he will get one. If not, the Walker Group is not a charity for relatives." His gaze hardens. "And if you ever show up here again to make Ella feel small, the guards will escort you out before she has to see your face." Beth starts to splutter. Martha appears in the doorway, leaning on her cane. "You heard my grandson," Martha says. "Leave. And consider this my official notice that you are uninvited from every family gathering until you grow a heart." Beth looks from one to the other, realizes she has lost, and storms out. The heavy front door thuds shut behind her like a period at the end of a long ugly sentence. Ella lets out a breath she did not realize she was holding. "You did not have to do that." "Yes," Luke says lightly. "I did. I have a reputation to maintain." She frowns. "What reputation?" "Cold, ruthless, impossible to marry," he says. "I cannot let people think I am secretly soft." Ella laughs, the sound shaky and bright. "Too late," she says. "I have seen you make coffee for your grandmother and answer emails at 3 in the morning. There is something very soft in there." He catches her gaze, something unguarded flickering in his. "Careful, Mrs. Walker," he says. "You are starting to sound like you care." She looks away first. "Maybe I do. A little." That night, when she visits her parents in their recovery room, her father squeezes her hand and whispers, "He looks like he would stand in front of a train for you." Ella thinks of Luke facing down Howard, of him telling Beth to leave, of the tired way he rubs his temples when he thinks no one is watching. I am not sure about a train, she says softly. But he has stood in front of a lot. A month into their marriage, the worst of the crisis seems over. Ella's parents are stable. Martha has stopped pretending to disapprove and started sending Ella recipes and gossip. The tabloids have moved on to another wedding. Luke, however, gets quieter. He spends more evenings locked in his study. The lines around his mouth deepen. When Ella brings him coffee one night, he is hunched over a stack of reports, his jaw clenched hard enough to crack. What is wrong? She asks. He does not answer at first. Then he turns the screen toward her. Hospital invoices, legal documents, old financial records from a small family business whose name makes her breath catch. Clark Medical Supplies. This was my parents' company, she says. It went bankrupt years ago. It was bankrupted, Luke says, by a shell corporation controlled by someone inside my family. He taps a signature on one of the documents. Howard Walker. Heat rushes to Ella's face, a mix of shock and rage. He did this? To us? He did it to me, Luke says quietly. You were collateral damage. He stands, the controlled calm finally cracking. Howard has been trying to undermine me for years. When he found out I refused the Reynolds merger, he decided to force my hand. If he could drive you into desperation, he could dangle a loan in front of you and demand something in return. Information, a favor, a scandal, something he could use to prove I was unfit to lead. Ella feels suddenly cold. So he hoped I would go to him. You did go, Luke says. Just not to him. Beth is his messenger. She would have carried whatever deal you accepted straight back to him. Her stomach turns. I had no idea. Of course you did not, Luke says. You were busy trying to keep your parents alive. He drags a hand through his hair. I thought if I intervened quietly and kept you in my orbit, I could protect you and flush him out. I did not expect to care this much about any of it. Something tightens in her chest. About me? He meets her eyes and does not look away. About you, he says simply. About your parents. About whether you get any sleep. About whether my grandmother makes you feel welcome. I told myself this was all strategy, but it stopped feeling like a game the first time I saw you fall asleep in a chair by your mother's bed. Silence stretches between them, full and fragile. What are you going to do? Ella asks. What I always do, he says. Gather evidence. Build a case. Only this time, it is personal. Luke, she says quietly. If you go after him, he will come after you harder. He will use anything he can, including in this marriage. I know, he says. Which is why I need to decide whether I am willing to risk the only good thing to come out of this mess. She steps closer before she can overthink it and lays her palm over his racing heart. You do not get to decide that alone, she says. You married me to save my parents. Let me help you protect what is yours. His hand comes up to cover hers. For a second, he closes his eyes. Careful, he murmurs. You are making it very hard to remember this is temporary. Maybe it does not have to be, she whispers. He opens his eyes, and the look in them steals her breath. The boardroom on the top floor of Walker Group headquarters is usually Luke's domain. Today it feels like a battlefield. Howard sits at one end of the long table with a stack of files and a smirk. Several senior board members murmur to each other, eyes darting between uncle and nephew. Reporters buzz outside the glass walls like flies, held back only by security. Martha sits near the center, cane across her lap, expression carved from stone. Luke enters with Ella at his side. He is all cool lines and quiet power in a dark suit. She is in a simple cream dress that Martha insisted on buying, her hair pinned back, her shoulders squared even though her knees wobble. Howard rises theatrically. Ladies and gentlemen, he says loudly. Before we begin our quarterly review, I feel compelled to address the elephant in the room. He gestures toward Ella. Our CEO has, without consulting this board, married a woman with no background, no connections, and significant family liabilities. And he has installed her in the family home as if this were some kind of fairy tale, rather than a multinational corporation. Ella's fingers twitch in Luke's hand. He squeezes them once, steady. Howard clicks a remote. Photos flash on the screen behind him. Ella, in her scrubs at the hospital. Ella hauling 2 grocery bags down a bus step. Ella sitting on the hospital steps with her head in her hands. These are not tabloid photographs, Howard says sanctimoniously. They are security footage from our own facilities, taken before our noble CEO decided to make this girl his wife. And here, he produces a folder with a flourish, is the contract that shows exactly how noble he is. He reads from it with relish. Term of 1 year. Payment of medical bills in exchange for public performance of marital duties. Clause regarding divorce at the end of the term. This is not a love story. It is fraud. A murmur ripples through the room. Martha's knuckles whiten on her cane. Howard slaps the folder down. This marriage is a sham orchestrated to appease our dear mother and sabotage a strategic merger. Luke has jeopardized the company's future for a nurse with a sob story. I call for a vote of no confidence. He sits, lips curling. Luke lets the noise rise and swell for a few seconds. Then he releases Ella's hand and walks to the head of the table. I appreciate your concern for the company, Uncle. He says. Truly, it is almost enough to make me forget you are the one who created the sob story in the first place. He picks up a small remote of his own. A new set of documents appears on the screen: email chains, bank transfers, corporate registrations. Clark Medical Supplies. Luke says calmly. A supplier our company used for years. A family business run by 2 people who treated their employees like family. It collapsed after a shell company bought its debt and called in every loan at once. He clicks again. A signature zooms in. Howard Walker. He reads. Acting through a shell he established with company funds. When Clark Medical Supplies begged the bank for mercy, Howard told them to talk to him directly. He offered them a personal loan on the condition that their daughter sign over access to their accounts and provide regular updates about any Walker Group projects she overheard at the hospital. Ella's stomach twists. The room goes very still. They refused. Luke continues. He pulled the loan, and they lost everything. Years later, when both of them were admitted to the hospital with a rare blood disease, he had a choice. Help or ignore. Instead, he chose a third option. He bribed a hospital administrator to delay their approval for public assistance, hoping to push their daughter closer to desperation. He turns to Howard. How am I doing so far? Howard's face shines with sweat. This is nonsense. He says. Where is your proof? Luke clicks again. The screen fills with a blurry but unmistakable image. Howard shaking hands with the hospital administrator in a parking garage, an envelope changing hands. Right here. Luke says softly. And in the copies of your bank statements that show the payment leaving your account that same day. He looks around the room. When I found out what he had done, I intercepted the hospital file. I paid the bill myself. I offered Ella a contract, yes. I called it a marriage because that is the language my grandmother understands. What started as a business arrangement became something else, something real. He glances at Ella. The force of the look steals her breath. I will not apologize for loving my wife. He says, voice low and steady. I will not apologize for wanting to keep my grandmother happy. And I will certainly not let a man who tried to turn a sick family into a bargaining chip lecture me about ethics. Martha rises slowly, leaning on her cane. I second that, she says. And I call for a different vote. Effective immediately, I move that Howard Walker be removed from his position on this board and cut off from all company accounts, pending further legal action. There is a beat of shocked silence. Then, one by one, hands go up around the table. Some out of loyalty to Luke, some out of fear of Martha, some out of self-preservation. It does not matter. The result is the same. The motion carries. The board secretary says faintly. Security appears at the door. Howard splutters, tries to grab the contract again, but Luke beats him to it. This, Luke says, holding up the paper that defined the last months of Ella's life. This has served its purpose. He tears it neatly in half. The sound is soft but final. Get him out of my building. Luke tells security. When the dust settles and the room empties, only Luke, Ella, and Martha remain. Martha studies them both, eyes keen. You too, she says. You think you are very clever, signing contracts behind my back, falling in love on my time. Ella flushes. We did not plan. Of course you did not. Martha says. If love could be planned, I would have scheduled mine for a week without a war. She softens. The question now is what you want to do next. Luke looks at Ella. That depends on her. Ella's hands tremble. Our agreement was for a year, she says. After everything you have done for me, I do not want you to feel trapped. Trapped. Luke steps closer. Ella, I have never been freer in my life than standing in front of that man and telling him I love you. Her heart stops. You a what? He smiles, a little crooked for once. I know you heard me. The mansion feels different that night. Lighter. The staff move with easier smiles. Martha hums in the kitchen while directing a florist on the phone. Even the air seems to carry a different weight. Ella sits on the edge of her bed in the guest wing with her half-packed suitcase open on the floor. The 1-year term on the original contract ends tomorrow. For weeks she has told herself she will leave when the time comes. She will not stay where she is not clearly wanted. Now, nothing is clear except the way her heart races whenever Luke walks into a room. There is a soft knock on her door. "Come in," she says, expecting a maid. Luke steps through instead, no tie, shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. For the first time since she met him, he looks almost uncertain. "You are packing," he says. "The contract expires." She answers. "I thought I should make things easier for both of us." He glances at the suitcase, then shuts the door behind him. "Does leaving make things easier for you?" She swallows. "It makes things simple." "Simple is overrated," Luke says. "I have spent my entire life chasing simple answers. Profit or loss, win or lose, merge or do not. Then you showed up and cried on the front steps, and nothing was simple again." Her eyes sting. "Sorry about that." "I am not," he says. He crosses the room in 2 strides and stops directly in front of her. His voice softens. "Ella, I have spent months telling myself this was temporary, so I would not scare you away. I told myself I was protecting you from my family, from the press, from everything that comes with being a walker. The truth is, I was protecting myself from the possibility that you might not want me if you had a choice." Her breath catches. "Luke." He drops to one knee. For a heartbeat she thinks her heart simply stops. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small velvet box. Inside, a ring catches the lamplight, simple and bright. "The contract ends tomorrow," he says quietly. "I do not want it renewed. I want it gone. Torn, burned, forgotten. I do not want one more day of pretending this is just a deal we made under pressure." His voice roughens. "I love you, Ella Clark Walker. I love your stubbornness, your soft heart, the way you still take extra shifts at the hospital, because you cannot stand to sit still when someone is hurting. I love that you made my grandmother smile more in 6 months than I managed in 6 years. I love that you look at me like a man, not a headline." Tears spill over now, hot and unstoppable. "I cannot buy this," he says. "I cannot negotiate for it. All I can do is ask. Will you marry me again? Not for a year. For as long as we both manage not to drive each other insane." She laughs through the tears. "That is a terrible vow." "I am a work in progress," he says. "Say yes and I will keep practicing." The fear that has sat coiled under her ribs since the day on the hospital steps finally unwinds. "Yes," she whispers. Then louder. "Yes, I will marry you. For real this time." Relief crashes over his face with such force that she almost loses her balance when he surges to his feet and pulls her into his arms. He kisses her like a man released from a sentence only he could see. They break apart only when someone loudly clears a throat in the doorway. Martha stands there, beaming. A small army of staff cluster behind her pretending not to stare. "If you are going to propose in my house," she says, "you might as well do it properly. The minister is on speed dial. The garden is already full of flowers for spring. I can have a dress here in 2 hours." Ella covers her face, laughing. Luke wraps an arm around her shoulders and looks at his grandmother. "You planned this." "Of course I did," Martha says. "I may not read contracts as fast as you, but I know when 2 people are in love. I have known since the day Ella yelled at you in my living room for staying at the office while her parents were in surgery." "I did not yell," Ella protests. "You did," Luke and Martha say together. The wedding 2 weeks later is small by billionaire standards. Just family, a few close friends, and the hospital staff who cheered when they heard the news. Ella walks down an aisle lined with white roses on her father's arm. Her mother cries openly in the front row. Beth is not invited. Howard is somewhere far away dealing with lawyers. Luke waits at the end of the aisle, eyes fixed on Ella like she is the only person in the world. When the officiant says, "Do you, Luke Walker, take Ella Clark to be your lawfully wedded wife?" His, "I do," rings out so clear that even the gardeners outside must hear it. When it is Ella's turn, her voice shakes, but the words are steady. "I do," she says. Even without a contract. Laughter ripples through the crowd. Afterward at the reception, they slip away for a moment to stand on the balcony overlooking the city. The sky is streaked pink and gold. The air smells like roses and cake. "Do you realize," Ella says, lacing her fingers through his, "that if your board had not panicked about your single status, we never would have met?" Luke kisses her temple. "If my board had not panicked, my grandmother would have found another way to throw you at me." "Do not underestimate her," Ella smiles. "Either way, I am glad you stopped in front of that hospital. So am I. He says. Months later, when the dust from Howard's scandals has settled and the Clark family's new foundation for blood disease research has funded its first round of patients, people still whisper about the story. Some say it was a cold contract turned warm. Some say it was destiny disguised as a deal. Ella does not much care which version survives. What she knows is this: once, on a night when everything tasted like loss, a man in a suit offered her a cruel choice. She said yes with shaking hands and a breaking heart. Today, when Luke reaches across their kitchen table and steals a bite of her toast, she swats his hand and pretends to scowl. He leans over, steals a kiss instead, and smiles against her mouth. Still glad you signed? He murmurs. She kisses him back, slow and certain. Glad you tore it up. She says. The first one saved my parents. This one saved me. He pulls her into his lap, laughter rumbling in his chest. Outside, the city buzzes and roars. Inside, they have their own quiet, hard-earned peace. No contract. No clock ticking down. Just two stubborn hearts that chose, again and again, to stay.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.